The sunlight streaming through the panoramic windows of SpaceX headquarters created an almost theatrical lighting. The rows of chairs arranged in a semicircle in front of the massive stage were already filled with journalists from all the world's leading publications. The air was filled with an electric tension mixed with the smell of fresh coffee and expensive perfume. Camera operators were setting up cameras, photographers were checking lenses, and reporters were frantically reviewing prepared questions. The event was announced just 48 hours before it started, in classic Elon Musk style. No details, just a short message. Tomorrow at 10 o'clock, SpaceX HQ, the future is getting closer. And now, sitting in the front row, tech forwards Alicia Garcia nervously tapped her stylus against her tablet. As an investigative tech journalist, she had planned to use the event in a way that was very different from what the organizers had expected. Her editor had been clear. We don't want another rave about Mars plans. We want something that will blow the internet away. 10 minutes to go, said a Bloomberg colleague sitting nearby. They say he himself insisted on no preliminary press briefing. Alicia chuckled. Of course. Control is his middle name. Screens on either side of the stage came to life, showing the SpaceX logo against the red Martian surface. Music, something electronic and minimalist, filled the room, forcing the journalists to stop talking and focus on the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, a voice came from the speakers, please welcome the founder and chief engineer of SpaceX, Elon Musk. Applause rippled through the room as the tall figure strode swiftly onto the stage. Unlike his typical t-shirt and jeans appearances, Musk wore a sharp navy suit, contrasted with a bright red tie. His gaze, always a little distant, seemed especially focused today. Good morning, he began, smiling slightly. His voice sounded more confident than usual. Thank you for coming. Musk paused as if collecting his thoughts and continued. Today I want to tell you about two projects that will change our understanding of the future. The first concerns Mars. The second concerns Earth. Images of the red planet appeared on the screens, alternating with shots of rocket prototypes and design diagrams. We have developed a new life support system for a Mars base that can recycle 98% of all waste and produce oxygen 3 times more efficiently than our previous models. This is not just an improvement. It is a revolution. Journalists began feverishly recording, cameras clicking, trying to capture every gesture and facial expression of Musk. But that's only half the story, he continued, as images of massive power plants appeared on the screens. Our engineers have developed a completely new system for storing solar energy. We call it the Terra battery. Unlike existing solutions, it doesn't require rare earth metals, has a lifespan of about 30 years, and can be scaled from powering a single home to powering an entire city. Musk pressed a button on the remote, and part of the stage slid open, revealing a small structure that resembled a futuristic safe the size of a refrigerator. This is a prototype, he said with undisguised pride. The device you see here can store enough energy to power the average American home for a month. Production will begin next quarter. The price will be affordable. We're trying to democratize energy the same way smartphones democratize computing power. A murmur of excitement ran through the room. Even Alicia, who was skeptical, could not help but acknowledge the impressive scale of the announcement. Now I'm ready to answer your questions, Musk said, and dozens of hands shot up. The event's moderator, a tall woman in a formal suit, began pointing at the journalists. John Simmons, Wall Street Journal. Mr. Musk, what are the potential economic implications of your Terra battery for traditional energy? Musk nodded slightly as if he had expected the question. The goal is not to destroy the existing system, but to offer an alternative. Companies that adapt and integrate new technologies will win. Those who cling to the past, well, history is full of examples of what happens to them. Several reporters chuckled. Another journalist raised his hand. Sarah Lee, TechCrunch. How does your energy storage system fit into the Mars colonization project? Are there any technological overlaps? That's a great question, Musk said, his tone growing even more animated. They're basically two sides of the same coin. The technologies we develop to survive on Mars could save Earth from the climate crisis, and vice versa. The solutions we find for Earth's problems help us prepare for life beyond our planet. Alicia felt that her moment had come. She raised her hand, and to her surprise, the moderator immediately pointed at her. Alicia Garcia, Tech Forward One. Musk, given the massive layoffs at Twitter following your acquisition of the platform and the recent layoffs at Tesla, does it seem disingenuous to talk about saving the planet when thousands of people have lost their jobs because of your decisions? There was silence in the room. Several journalists exchanged nervous glances. The question was clearly beyond the scope of the press conference, and everyone knew it. Musk paused for a moment, his eyes, usually darting, focused on Alicia. When he spoke, his voice was measured. I believe we are here to discuss technological innovation, not personnel policy. But if you insist, any company must be efficient in order to fulfill its mission. Sometimes this means difficult decisions. Alicia wasn't going to back down. What about reports that working conditions in your factories do not meet safety standards, or that your companies systematically prevent the formation of trade unions? The moderator stepped forward. Please, let's stick to the topic. But Musk stopped her with a gesture. No, it's okay. I'll answer. He took a deep breath. The mission of SpaceX and Tesla is to change the world for the better. This requires incredible efforts from everyone involved. We are building the future, not just another business. When it comes to safety, our performance is better than the industry average, and we are constantly working to improve it. Alicia continued her attack. What about your own controversial Twitter statements? Your political donations? The fact that you, as one of the richest people on the planet, avoid paying your fair share of taxes? A murmur ran through the room. Other journalists began to lean forward with interest, sensing the emerging conflict. Musk's lips tightened, his gaze sharpening. I have paid more taxes than any American in history, in absolute numbers, and my social media activity is my own business. We are here to talk about technologies that solve real problems for humanity, not about my tweets. But don't your personal life and views influence the direction of the companies you control? Alicia countered. Doesn't the public have a right to know who's really behind these grandiose plans? Musk looked down, and for a moment it seemed like he was actually considering his answer. When he looked up, his eyes were cold. Next question, please. The moderator pointed to another journalist with relief, but Alicia didn't give up. You haven't answered my question, Mr. Musk. If you truly believe in transparency and a future built on trust, why do you refuse to discuss these topics? The cameras panned to Alicia, then back to Musk. The tension in the room was almost palpable. The other reporters waited, knowing they were witnessing a moment that would be front-page news tomorrow. Musk walked slowly to the edge of the stage, looking directly at Alicia. You didn't come here with a genuine interest in technology that could change the world. You came here with a prepared agenda to turn a discussion about the future of humanity into a dirty political squabble. His voice was quiet but clearly audible in the dead silence of the room. That's exactly what I hate about modern media. You're not looking for the truth. You're looking for a sensation. Alicia felt dozens of eyes boring into her, but it was too late to retreat. I'm just asking questions that the public has a right to know. Or do you think you're above that? There was a look of weariness in Musk's eyes. He turned away, walked to the center of the stage, and stood looking at the image of Mars on the screen behind him. The seconds of silence stretched like hours. Then he turned around abruptly, and his voice sounded with renewed strength. You know what? I'm tired of this. I'm really tired. He glanced around the room. I came here to talk about technologies that could help humanity, a system that could make clean energy available to billions of people. Breakthroughs that are moving us closer to becoming a multi-planet species. Instead, we're talking about tweets and office politics. He paused as if making a decision, and then continued. From now on and for the next 24 hours, I am declaring complete media silence. No interviews, no comments, no posts on social media. Neither I nor my companies will interact with the press for 24 hours. Shock swept through the room. Journalists began whispering, and camera operators glanced nervously at each other. You can't just, Alicia began, but Musk interrupted her. I can, and I do. He turned to the moderator. The press conference is over. Please escort the press representatives out. With that, he turned and strode decisively toward the stage exit. Security stepped forward, forming a barrier between him and the journalists, who jumped up from their seats. Mr. Musk, someone shouted. Is this just about today's topic or any questions? What about the scheduled interview with CNBC? Another shouted. How will this affect your company's shares? Came from the back rows. But Musk had already disappeared backstage, leaving behind shocked journalists and rolling cameras that continued to capture the chaos in the room. Alicia stood there clutching her tablet, feeling the eyes of her colleagues on her, some accusing, others envious. She had achieved her goal. Everyone would be talking about this press conference tomorrow, but the price was higher than she had expected. Happy? A Bloomberg reporter standing nearby asked quietly. You just created an information crisis for all of us. Alicia didn't answer. Her phone was already buzzing with incoming messages and calls. One after another, dozens of notifications filled the screen. Editors, colleagues, other media outlets wanting to get a comment. In the far corner of the room, SpaceX employees were milling about, clearly unprepared for this turn of events. One of them, a young man in a white shirt, ran onto the stage. Esteemed members of the press, He tried to shout over the growing hubbub. Please, we ask you to leave the room in order of your turn. All presentation materials will be available on the official website. For any further questions? But no one was listening anymore. Journalists were feverishly typing messages, calling editorial offices. Some were broadcasting live from the hall. Elon Musk just went on an unprecedented media silence after being asked provocative questions by a tech-forward journalist. Which Tesla shares have already responded by falling in preliminary trading. What does this mean for the speech planned for tomorrow at the Economic Club? Alicia tuned out the noise and focused on the message she just received from her editor. Get to the studio now. Live in 30 minutes, Ernie. You've broken the internet. She looked at the empty stage. The Terra battery prototype still stood there, alone and forgotten, where 10 minutes ago it had been the center of attention. Technology that could change the world. Now all anyone talked about was conflict, drama, identity. As she headed for the exit, passing screens with images of Mars, her phone vibrated again. A notification from a stock app. TSLA 4.2%, TWTR 3.8%. The information storm was just beginning. The tech-forward newsroom was in chaos. Alicia, who hadn't even had time to take off her jacket, was the center of attention. Monitors on the walls were broadcasting all the major news channels, and each one was flashing footage of the SpaceX press conference, with Musk abruptly leaving the stage repeated over and over. Do you realize what you just did? Greg Lawson, the editor-in-chief, was not hiding his excitement. His eyes were feverishly shining. Our site crashed from the influx of traffic. 3 million views in an hour. Alicia sank into a chair, nervously adjusting her hair. I didn't think he would react like that. That's how anyone would react after an attack like that. Jason, the senior tech writer, looked at her with a mixture of admiration and horror. You've cornered Elon Musk himself. Notifications continued to pop up on Alicia's phone screen. Dozens of interview requests, hundreds of mentions on Twitter, thousands of comments on a video that had already racked up millions of views. Let him think he's won, she muttered, scanning the feed. His media silence will only increase interest. Do you even understand the scale of this? Greg turned his monitor toward her. Tesla shares are down 7% since the conference ended. Twitter X is down almost 10%. That's billions of dollars in market cap. The market is nervous, Alicia waved it off. Everything will be back to normal by the close of trading. But she was wrong. By the close of trading, the situation had only worsened. Red arrows and nervous faces of analysts flashed across the screens of financial channels. Musk shot himself in the foot, said the gray-haired Bloomberg expert. Media silence in the midst of a revolutionary technology presentation is an unprecedented step that sends an alarming signal to investors. At the SpaceX office, meanwhile, the atmosphere was very different. Justin Castle, head of PR, was trying to calm the team gathered in a conference room. Okay, let's all take a deep breath. He tried to appear calm, although his forehead was glistening with sweat. We're dealing with a situation that no one could have foreseen. Seriously? Blurted Maria, the senior communications manager. You've been working with Elon for over 5 years and you couldn't foresee him doing something like this? Justin ignored her outburst. Ahram, we have 6 interviews scheduled for today, a press tour of the production facility tomorrow, and a talk at Tech Summit the day after. All canceled, completely canceled. What about the investors? Someone asked from the corner of the room. They're already bombarding us with questions. Justin rubbed the bridge of his nose. I wrote a statement for them. Something like, everything is going according to plan. This is a tactical move. No reason to worry. What about Terra battery? Maria asked. We were going to launch a major campaign today after the announcement. Pause everything, Justin snapped. No posts, no releases, nothing. 24 hours is 24 hours. He turned to the screen on the wall where CNBC was broadcasting a panel discussion with the headline, Musk's Crisis. What's behind his sudden media exit? Oh my God, look who's in the studio, someone from the team whispered. Alicia Garcia appeared on the screen, sitting opposite the host. She looked impeccable. A smart suit, perfect hair, confident pose. The SpaceX team froze, listening to every word. Ms. Garcia, you were there when it all happened. What do you think was the final straw for Elon Musk? The host asked. Alicia paused dramatically. I think it's not about the specific question, but about Musk's fundamental unwillingness to be truly accountable to society. When I asked him about the contradictions between his words about saving the planet and the actual actions of companies, he chose to hide rather than answer. Do you think he planned this move in advance? No, Alicia shook her head. I saw his face. It was the impulsive reaction of someone who was used to controlling the narrative and suddenly lost that control. There was a groan in the SpaceX conference room. "She's turning this into her show," Justin hissed, turning off the sound. "And everyone's buying it. Do we have a strategy?" Maria asked. "We can't just sit back and watch her shape public opinion." Justin laughed, but there was no humor in his laughter. "Strategy? Our strategy is literally do nothing for 24 hours. That's the order." At that moment, the conference room door swung open and in walked Sam Harris, SpaceX's chief technology officer and Musk's right-hand man on engineering matters. "The meeting is over," he said without preamble. "Justin, Maria, follow me. Everyone else, no comments, no leaks, no personal opinions on social media. Got it?" When they got out, Sam led them down the hall to an elevator that required a special pass. "We're going down to the engineering bunker," he explained. "Elon's there." "Is he okay?" Maria asked. Sam gave a wry smile. "Define fine. He's furious, but productive. He's already made 3 improvements to the Terra battery design while we're panicking here." Meanwhile, back at the CNBC studio, Alicia finished her interview, and as soon as she took off the microphone, found her phone blowing up with notifications. "So how did it go?" Greg asked over the video link. "Like clockwork," she replied. "Next stop, Fox News in an hour, then CNN." "Be careful on Fox," Greg warned. "They've already started building the narrative of activist journalists attacking American innovator." Alicia rolled her eyes. "Of course. A man throws a tantrum and leaves the stage. This is a strategic move. A woman asked tough questions. This is an attack." She scrolled through her Twitter feed and landed on trending hashtags. Musk vs. Media was number 1, with millions of mentions. Second place, Alicia Garcia. "Jesus," she whispered, "I'm a trend." "Enjoy your 15 minutes of fame," Greg chuckled. "If Musk really sticks to his media silence, everyone will be back to discussing the Kardashians tomorrow." But Alicia knew that wasn't true. She felt that something fundamental had changed. At the Fox News office, she was greeted noticeably colder than at CNBC. Host Brian Keller, known for his conservative views, did not hide his skepticism. "So, Ms. Garcia," he began after the performance, "many of our viewers believe that you deliberately sabotaged a presentation that could have demonstrated a major technological breakthrough. How do you respond to this accusation?" Alicia paused, keeping her expression calm. "Seems to me, Brian, that your viewers are confusing cause and effect. I ask the questions that any responsible journalist would ask. Mr. Musk's reaction is his choice, not mine. You ask questions that were not relevant to the presentation," Keller countered. "You moved from technology to politics, knowing full well that it could cause conflict. Does technology exist in a vacuum?" Alicia leaned forward. "When the man who controls the largest technology company says he's going to change the future of humanity, shouldn't we question his values and decisions?" Brian didn't back down. "There is a difference between constructive questions and outright attacks. Many experts believe that you came with a pre-planned goal, to provoke a scandal and get a viral moment for your publication. It's ironic to hear Fox News accuse them of clickbaiting," Alicia smiled. Keller frowned and tension filled the studio. "Let's get back to the point," he finally said. "Because of your exchange with Musk, the world may not see a revolutionary energy storage technology. Do you consider that a victory?" "Let's be honest," Alicia replied. "If Elon Musk really has created a revolutionary technology that can change the world, he's not going to let it sit on a shelf collecting dust because of one bad press conference. And if he does, what does that say about his priorities?" In the SpaceX engineering bunker, Elon Musk watched the interview on a big screen, arms crossed over his chest. Sam, Justin, and Maria stood next to him, afraid to break the silence. "She's holding up well," Musk finally said. "A professional provocateur." "We could issue a retraction," Justin suggested. "There are a lot of factual inaccuracies in her statements about Tesla and—" "No," Musk snapped. "No denials, no statements, no reactions, 24 hours of silence." "But the stocks keep falling," Maria noted cautiously. "Investors are panicking." Musk shrugged. "Let them panic. Those who sell shares because of one canceled press conference do not understand what they are investing in." He turned to his desk, which was littered with blueprints and prototype components. "Sam, what's up with the thermal system testing? Yesterday's results were encouraging, but we need to speed up the recharge cycle." Sam switched to technical questions with relief. "We've seen a 14% improvement from your adjustments this morning. If all goes well, we should be able to cut the reload time in half by tomorrow." Musk nodded and became fully immersed in his work, as if the information storm raging above had ceased to exist, and the storm only grew worse. By evening, the lack of response from Musk and his companies had created a perfect vacuum, which the media filled with all sorts of speculation. CNN debated Musk's mental state, bringing in experts who had never met him. His behavior displays classic signs of narcissistic personality disorder, the visiting psychologist claimed. Inability to accept criticism, impulsive decisions, grandiose thinking. On Fox News, by contrast, Musk was hailed as a victim of the woke media. Musk did the right thing, the conservative commentator declared. Why should the greatest innovator of our time waste his energy answering the picky questions of ideologically motivated pseudo-journalists? Social media was split into two camps. Sugar's Stand for Alona and Musk runs competed for the top spot in trends. Celebrities, politicians, and business leaders chose sides by publishing heated statements. Tasha Green, a well-known tech blogger, posted a video that received millions of views in a matter of hours. The problem isn't that Musk didn't answer questions, she said. It's that the format of the traditional press conference is outdated. Why should creative geniuses be subject to rules made for politicians? And on the other end of the spectrum, influential podcaster Joe Rogan hosted a special. Freedom of the press is not the freedom to stage public executions. This journalist did not come for information. She came for Musk's head. At Tech Forward headquarters, Alicia returned late one evening after a marathon of interviews. Greg greeted her with a bottle of champagne. Congratulations! We just broke the daily traffic record in the publication's history. He handed her a glass. You've officially made us one of the most talked about tech media outlets in the country. Alicia took the glass but didn't look as enthusiastic. It's strange, Greg. I ask the questions we always ask. But now it feels like I've committed some kind of crime. Or a feat, Greg winked. Depends on who you ask. He led her to a wall where a large screen displayed the publication's metrics. The graphs showed unprecedented growth across all parameters. We didn't just get traffic, he explained. We got paid subscribers. Thousands of new paid subscribers in one day. Alicia nodded absently, scrolling through Twitter on her phone. The threats and insults directed at her were growing exponentially. Corrupt journalist, destroyer of American innovation, left liberal activist were the mildest of the expressions. I think I've let the genie out of the bottle, she whispered. Hey, Greg put his hand on her shoulder. You did your job. Musk made his choice. Everything else is noise. But the noise grew louder. By nightfall, the issue had grown to national proportions. Even major politicians began to speak out. This is a shining example of what happens when ideology trumps progress, said one Republican senator. Because of one militant left-liberal journalist, American innovation was sacrificed. In response, the Democratic senator was quick to retort, if tech leaders can't answer basic questions about their ethical positions, perhaps we should reconsider who we consider heroes. In a matter of hours, the story went from being about technology to being about politics, another battlefield in an endless cultural war. Late that night, Alicia sat in her apartment, scrolling through the endless stream of comments. Her phone buzzed with notifications. The theory that Musk had deliberately provoked the conflict to distract from problems at his companies was gaining traction. What if I played right into his hands, she thought. All eyes were on the stock market this morning. Hours before the market opened, analysts were predicting further declines in Tesla and Twitter X shares. Without an official position from Musk or his companies, the market will continue to react negatively. The financial expert explained on Bloomberg TV, investors hate uncertainty more than anything. But at 8:55 a.m., 5 minutes before the opening bell, something unexpected happened. Both SpaceX and Tesla's official channels simultaneously posted a short message. Important announcement at 9:30 a.m. EST, and nothing more. Alicia, who was preparing for another interview, felt the ground slipping out from under her feet. He broke his promise, she whispered. It wasn't even 24 hours ago. Greg, who contacted her via video link, looked worried. No, check the time. Exactly 24 hours since his statement at the press conference. Second by second. This scoundrel literally timed it. The world waits in anticipation. What will Musk say? Apologize? Attack the media? Announce a lawsuit against Tech Forward? While journalists from all publications feverishly prepared for the broadcast, chaos of theories and assumptions reigned on social networks. At 9:29 a.m., the official SpaceX and Tesla channels went live. But instead of a traditional press conference or statement, they featured a live feed from the engineering department. No introduction, no announcement, no middleman. Just Elon Musk in a SpaceX t-shirt, standing next to a Terra battery prototype, hooked up to a server rack and multiple monitors. Good morning, he said calmly, looking straight into the camera. I'm glad to be talking to you again after 24 hours of concentrated work. Let me show you what we've done. It was the beginning of a whole new chapter in the history of tech communications. Musk didn't just break the silence, he changed the rules of the game. leaving traditional media in disarray and setting a precedent that sent journalists from New York to San Francisco dialing their editors in a panic. Alicia, watching the broadcast on her phone, felt a chill down her spine. Musk's media silence was not a retreat. It was a step back before the leap. SpaceX's engineering bunker was an immaculately appointed underground facility 3 levels below the main complex. With low ceilings lit by cool LED panels and walls of reinforced concrete, the space resembled a cross between a military command center and a futuristic laboratory. Elon Musk sat at a wide desk covered in prototypes and schematics, finally allowing himself to breathe after the live broadcast. The monitors in front of him glowed with dozens of open tabs, from financial reports to social media. The market reacted instantly. Tesla and Twitter X stocks returned to growth, recouping yesterday's losses. That was brilliant. Sam Harris handed Musk a cup of black coffee. A direct demonstration of the technology instead of words. No journalists, no intermediaries between you and the public. Musk took a sip and winced. The coffee was too hot. It was necessary, he replied, not taking his eyes off the monitors. Imagine what would have happened if we had continued as usual. Terra battery would have been lost in the noise of the scandal. For another week, everyone would have been talking about my reaction to that journalist's questions and not about the technology that could change the energy industry. Sam nodded and sank into the chair opposite. Judging by the reaction, your show worked. The Terra battery pre-order schedule has already hit the ceiling. Musk smiled faintly, but his eyes remained serious. This is just the beginning, Sam. We've just shown the industry that you can communicate directly with people, bypassing traditional media, and the media will never forgive us for this. He turned to one of the monitors, where Twitter UX was buzzing with activity. The hashtags, Musk changed. The game and us direct democracy were vying for the top spot in the trends with hashtag media censorship and threat to press freedom. As expected, Musk muttered, scrolling through the feed, everyone picks the side that suits their worldview. Meanwhile, in the tech-forward office, the mood had shifted from triumphant to tense. Alicia, who was watching Musk's broadcast with her colleagues, could feel the anxiety building in the office. Greg Lawson paced nervously behind her, biting his thumbnail, a rare sign of extreme anxiety. He's a fucking genius, Greg finally said. Turned a crisis into a marketing triumph. Own channel, total control of the message, direct line to consumers. He didn't answer a single question about company policy or ethical issues, Alicia countered. He just changed the subject with a flashy show. Greg shook his head. You don't understand the scale. He just demonstrated to the world that he can do without us. Without Tech Forward, without CNBC, without the Wall Street Journal. He created a situation where the traditional media is forced to quote his live broadcasts, and not the other way around. Alicia opened her phone notifications and felt a chill. Among the usual stream of comments and messages, there were now direct threats. Anonymous accounts accused her of attacking America's future, sabotaging climate innovation, and a dozen other imaginary crimes. It's already started, she said quietly, showing the phone to Greg. Get used to it, he sighed. You're not just a journalist now. You're a symbol. For some, of bold opposition to the authorities. For others, of everything bad in modern journalism. I just asked the questions that needed to be asked. Alicia felt a lump form in her throat. I didn't choose this role. Greg put his hand on her shoulder. The role has chosen you, and now we need to decide how to proceed. In the SpaceX bunker, Musk continued to monitor the reaction to his broadcast. Maria, the head of PR, walked in with a tablet. Here are the most influential comments of the last hour, she said, handing the clipboard to Musk. Bezos wrote that it was an innovative approach to corporate communications. Zuckerberg hinted at a possible collaboration, and Tim Cook remained diplomatically silent. Musk looked over the list and nodded. And how does the media react? Predictable, Maria frowned. Technical publications admire Terra battery, but criticize its avoidance of journalistic questions. Political publications are divided strictly along party lines. Business media focus on the market effect and potential threats to investors due to your unpredictable behavior. In other words, nothing new, Musk put down his tablet. What about Tech Forward? Maria tensed. They are preparing a large material. Judging by the sources, they are collecting all the controversial moments from the history of your companies, tying them into a single line and presenting Terra battery as a distraction from more serious problems. Musk leaned back in his chair and rubbed his eyes tiredly. As expected, when I violate their monopoly on information, they respond with an even more aggressive offensive. Through the glass wall, a team of engineers could be seen working on a prototype, tweaking sensors, calibrating measuring devices, refining a design that could solve one of the key problems in the transition to renewable energy. Musk watched them for a few seconds, then turned to Maria. You know what's most absurd? We're trying to solve real problems here. Create technology that will help millions of people get access to clean energy. And up there's endless arguments about my tweets, my personality, my political views. As if that's more important than what we're doing. Maria nodded uncertainly. This is the information age, Elon. Sometimes perception matters more than reality. But not for technology, Musk replied firmly. Either Terra battery will work as we say it will, or it won't. No amount of PR stunts will make it more effective. No amount of media attacks will make it worse. At that moment, Justin ran into the room, looking worried. We have a problem, he blurted out. Drones, dozens of drones around the perimeter. News channels, paparazzi, independent bloggers, all trying to get exclusive footage. Musk frowned. Don't we have a countermeasure system? Yes, Justin nodded. But we can't shoot down civilian drones without serious legal consequences. And they fly on the edge of permitted airspace, technically not breaking the law. What do they expect to see? Musk asked, a hint of irritation. You, Justin said simply. They want to see you leaving the building, who you're meeting, where you're going. The first shots of Elon Musk after the media silence are worth millions to any publication. Musk walked over to one of the monitors and turned on the external surveillance cameras. Indeed, there were several dozen drones hovering around the SpaceX complex, and an impressive crowd of journalists with cameras and microphones had gathered on the perimeter. Digital siege, he muttered, like the Middle Ages, only with Wi-Fi and lithium-ion batteries. At the same time, Alicia was working on her main story at Tech Forward. She had assembled an impressive dossier on Musk and his companies, from contradictory statements about safety at Tesla factories to questionable decisions in the purchase of Twitter, from conflicts with regulators to personal attacks on critics. How's the article coming along? Greg asked, looking over her shoulder. Almost ready, Alicia replied, but there's something else that's bothering me. Take a look. She showed him her phone, which had Twitter X open. The account was a real truth seeker posted her home address with the message, "This journalist is trying to destroy American innovation. Maybe she should learn what real pressure is." Greg whistled. This is beyond all bounds. We need to contact security immediately. Already, Alicia nodded. They advised me not to come home today. It's one thing to get angry comments, quite another to have your address published online. We could sue, Greg suggested. It's a direct threat. An anonymous user? Alicia smiled bitterly. Even if we win, the damage has already been done. The information is online. She returned to the article, but her concentration was broken. Musk's fanatical followers had turned a professional conflict into a personal vendetta. And while she knew Musk hadn't directly called for such action, his comments about hostile media and ideologically motivated journalists had set the stage for such a reaction. Are you still sure you want to publish this article? Greg asked cautiously. We can hold off on publishing until things calm down. Alicia looked at him in surprise. Are you serious? Since when does Tech Forward back down from threats? Since the threats become personal and specific, Greg looked genuinely concerned. Your safety is more important than the article. If we back down now, Alicia said firmly, we'll be confirming Musk's narrative of media that attacks but can't withstand the blowback. This isn't just my article, Greg. This is a matter of principle. Greg sighed and nodded. Fine, but after publication, you take a vacation. You go somewhere where you won't be found, at least for a few days. Agreed, Alicia returned to work. In the SpaceX bunker, Musk watched the social media activity grow. His attention was drawn to a post from Tech Forward announcing a comprehensive investigation into the real Elon Musk, scheduled to be published in 3 hours. They're not wasting any time, he muttered. Sam, working at the next table, looked up from his drawings. Are you worried? What can they tell us that the public doesn't already know? It's not about new information, Musk said. It's about framing. They'll take all the controversial parts of my past, add dramatic context, and present it as the revelation of the century. He glanced at a display showing a crowd of journalists at the SpaceX gate. We need to go out to them, he said suddenly. Maria, who was sitting nearby, raised her head. What? You just did a live broadcast to avoid this circus, and now you want to go into the thick of it? Exactly, Musk nodded. They expect me to hide to avoid them. Well, I'll do the opposite. It's risky, Sam warned. You won't be able to control the narrative like you would with your own broadcast. I'm not trying to control it. I'm just showing that I'm not afraid of their questions. Musk stood up. Get the Tesla Model S ready. I'll be out the front door in 10 minutes. Alicia's piece was nearly finished. It was a carefully researched piece that tied together all the controversies in Musk's career, from the early PayPal lawsuits to his recent run-ins with regulators, from the promises of self-driving cars that never materialized on schedule, to the contradictions in his public statements. Her phone rang. The number was not identified. Alicia Garcia, she replied. Ms. Garcia. The voice on the other end was low and calm. Before you publish your article, I think you should take a look at the live feed from the SpaceX building. Now. Who is it? She asked, but the caller had already hung up. Alicia quickly opened the live feed of the news channel and saw a crowd of journalists at the gates of SpaceX. Suddenly, the gates opened and a black Tesla Model S appeared. The car slowly drove out and stopped. The back door opened and Elon Musk stepped out. A crowd of journalists surged forward, shouting questions. SpaceX security formed a human corridor, holding back the onslaught. Musk raised his hands for silence, and miraculously, the crowd fell silent. I have 5 minutes, he said loudly. I'll answer a few questions, but one at a time, please. The journalists began shouting again, each trying to outshout the other. Musk pointed to the woman from the Associated Press. Mr. Musk, she began, your decision to go into media silence has caused an unprecedented reaction. Did you plan for this effect? No, he said simply. I just wanted to focus on my work without distractions. But I understand that in today's world, even silence becomes a statement. He pointed to the next journalist, a man from Reuters. How do you feel about the claims that your live broadcast maneuver was an attempt to bypass traditional media and avoid difficult questions? Musk smiled slightly. I'm not trying to bypass the media. I'm standing here in front of you, answering questions. But I also believe that tech companies should be able to communicate directly with their audiences, without intermediaries. It's not a replacement for journalism, it's a complement to it. The next question was from Fox News. Many free speech advocates are concerned about what's happening in today's media. Do you think your conflict with Tech Forward is emblematic of a broader problem in journalism? Musk paused, clearly considering his answer. I think the problem is deeper than individual publications or journalists. We live in an era where social media algorithms and the media economy encourage confrontation, polarization, and the simplification of complex topics. This is not the fault of specific individuals. It is a systemic problem. He pointed to the CNN journalist. Tech Forward announced a major investigation about you and your companies. Are you concerned about their publication? I'm not afraid of criticism, Musk said. I've made mistakes, made controversial decisions, changed my mind on some things. That's all part of being a public figure. But I hope people will judge me by the actual results of my work, not by the headlines in the media. He was about to point to the next journalist when a loud voice came from the crowd. What about the threats against Alicia Garcia? Your fans publish her personal address and threaten her. The cameras turned, looking for the source of the question. Musk frowned. This is unacceptable. If this really happens, I am categorically against such actions. You can disagree with someone's views, you can criticize someone's work, but personal threats are unacceptable. I hope that law enforcement agencies will take the necessary measures. In the Tech Forward office, Alicia watched in surprise. She hadn't expected Musk to come out to the press, much less denounce the threats against her. That's a smart move, Greg commented, standing next to him. He flips the narrative. Now, if you publish a scathing article, it will look like a personal vendetta, despite his noble gesture. That doesn't change the facts, Alicia said firmly. His words about my safety are worthless if he continues to demonize journalism in general. She returned to her article, making final edits. Her phone rang again, this time with a familiar number. Alicia, the CNN national news editor sounded excited. Did you see Musk's speech? We want you to comment on it live in an hour. Alicia thought for a second. Okay, she agreed, but only after my article comes out. Musk ended the impromptu press conference and returned to his car. As the doors closed, cutting off the screams of reporters, he exhaled in relief. How did I do? He asked Sam, who was driving. Brilliant, he replied. Especially your answer about Garcia's threats. It absolves you of responsibility and puts her in an awkward position. I didn't lie, Musk said seriously. I really am against any threats. This is beyond the pale. Sam nodded as he pulled out onto the highway. Adaram, do you know that she is preparing an article? Of course, Musk pulled out his phone and opened Twitter, X. They've already announced the publication. The Dark Side of Genius, the truth about Elon Musk. Very original. Do you plan to react somehow? Musk thought for a moment. Yes, but not in the way they expect. Alicia's article came out exactly as scheduled. The meticulously researched piece based on facts, documents, and comments from former employees of Musk companies was the most comprehensive examination to date of the contradictions and inconsistencies in his public image. The reaction was immediate and predictably polarized. Musk's critics hailed the article as definitive revelation and courageous journalism. His supporters denounced it as a paid story and a personal vendetta. Alicia barely had time to look at the first responses when it was time for her live broadcast on CNN. We are joined by Alicia Garcia, a journalist for Tech Forward, whose recent article about Elon Musk caused a storm of reactions. The host began. Alicia, what do you think about Musk's statement about the inadmissibility of threats against you? Alicia straightened up in front of the camera. I certainly appreciate his words, but it is important to understand the context. When an influential person with millions of followers calls journalists enemies of progress or ideological activists, it creates the ground for such threats. Words have consequences. Do you hold Musk responsible for the actions of his fans? I think with great power comes great responsibility, Alicia replied. And yes, I think public figures need to be aware of the impact their rhetoric has on their audiences. As the interview continued, Alicia stood firm in her defense, but a strange feeling was growing inside her. What if Musk was right about the systemic problems of media? What if they were both caught in a deeper conflict between technology and traditional institutions? On his private jet, en route to his next destination, Musk was reviewing Alicia's article on his tablet. Contrary to what many might expect, he wasn't angry. Instead, he was carefully analyzing every point, every accusation, every argument. There's a grain of truth in this, he acknowledged, turning to Sam. Her facts are mostly correct. The problem is interpretation and context. You're not going to refute it? Musk shook his head. No, I'm going to do something more interesting. He opened his laptop and started typing. The title of a new post appeared on the screen. Open invitation to Alicia Garcia. At the hotel where Alicia was temporarily staying for safety reasons, her phone kept ringing. Colleagues, friends, other journalists. Everyone wanted to discuss her article and the fallout from the conflict with Musk. She turned off the sound and lay down on the bed, feeling emotionally drained. The last 2 days had been a roller coaster ride, from professional triumph to personal threats, from national notoriety to forced shelter. Her laptop beeped, signaling an incoming email. She reluctantly opened it and froze. The email was from Elon Musk's official email address. Subject, invitation to dialogue. With a pounding heart, she opened the letter. Dear Ms. Garcia, I read your article carefully. Instead of publicly refuting your conclusions or engaging in a media spat, I propose something different. I invite you to visit SpaceX and Tesla, not as a journalist for an interview, but as a person interested in the truth. You will be able to talk to any employee, ask any questions, see our work from the inside, without preconditions, without restrictions. All I ask is that you come with an open mind. If your opinion does not change after this visit, I will accept it. But I believe that direct dialogue can be more productive than public confrontation. My assistant will contact you to discuss details if you are interested. Sincerely, Elon Musk. Alicia read the letter 3 times, not believing her eyes. It was a stroke of genius. Unexpected, bold, and completely changing the dynamics of their confrontation. She reached for the phone to call Greg, but stopped. If she discussed this with the editors, they would turn the private invitation into a media circus. Press releases, announcements, expectations, anything that would get in the way of a real dialogue. Instead, she began to write. Exactly 24 hours after the media silence began, the tech world froze in anticipation. The initial chaos gave way to a tense calm, that special state when all parties to a conflict realize that a decisive moment is approaching. Alicia Garcia sat in her temporary refuge, a boutique hotel room on the outskirts of Los Angeles, where Greg had sent her for safety. Her laptop was open in front of her, with an email from Elon Musk. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, hesitant to type a reply. An invitation to dialogue is what Musk called it, an offer to visit SpaceX and Tesla with no preconditions, no restrictions, no publicity, a pure game changer in their information standoff. Alicia's phone rang, interrupting her thoughts. It was Greg. Did you see? He asked without greeting. What exactly? Alicia frowned. Musk's letter? No, his new post. Greg's voice was tense. He just announced a new platform for corporations to communicate directly with the public, without journalists as intermediaries, without traditional media filters. He called it direct democracy. Alicia quickly opened Twitter, X, and saw Musk's post. Indeed, he announced the creation of a platform where tech companies will be able to answer users' questions in real time, demonstrate their developments, conduct votes on future products and development directions. Imagine a world where you can ask questions directly to the creators of the technologies you use, without distortion, without middlemen, without ideological filters, Musk wrote. Direct democracy is the next step in the evolution of corporate communications. Launching today at noon PST. He's not joking, Alicia breathed. He really has declared war on traditional media. Not media, Greg corrected, just mediation journalism. And believe me, a lot of the tech giants are lining up to join in. Zuckerberg, Pichai, Nadella, they've all seen Musk turn the crisis around, and they want to do the same. Alicia closed her eyes, trying to process the situation. An hour ago, she had been contemplating whether to accept Musk's personal invitation. Now she had to decide how to respond to a potential industry revolution. What are you going to do with his invitation? Greg asked, as if he had read her mind. I haven't decided yet, Alicia admitted. On the one hand, it's a chance to see everything from the inside, to ask questions directly. On the other, it might look like capitulation. That's not capitulation, Greg countered. That's journalism. You go after the facts, regardless of the source or the circumstances. Alicia glanced at her watch. There were just over 3 hours left until the announced launch of Musk's platform. I'll make a decision in an hour, she said finally. I need to clear something up for myself. After the call, Alicia leaned back in her chair and closed her eyes. A memory from her childhood came to mind when her father, who worked as an editor at a small local newspaper, explained the essence of journalism to her. Our job is to be a bridge between events and people, Alicia. Not a wall, not a filter, but a bridge. She opened her laptop and began writing a response to Musk. Mr. Musk, I accept your invitation, but on one condition. I will come not just as a private person, but as a journalist doing my job. That means asking tough questions, demanding concrete answers, and then telling you honestly what I saw. If you truly believe in transparency and dialogue, these conditions should not scare you. Sincerely, Alicia Garcia. She reread the letter, nodded with satisfaction, and pressed send. The point of no return had been passed. In the SpaceX engineering bunker, Elon Musk was putting the finishing touches on the launch of direct democracy. A team of programmers and designers worked nonstop, turning his spontaneous idea into a functioning platform in record time. Technically, everything is ready, the lead developer reported. The servers will handle the initial load of up to 10 million simultaneous connections. The interface is intuitive and minimalistic, as you asked for. Musk nodded, looking at the code on one of the monitors. Good. What about the partners? Justin, sitting at another computer, gave a thumbs up. 5 major tech companies have confirmed participation since launch, with another 20 or so set to join within a week if all goes well. What about regulatory risks? Musk turned to his legal advisor. The platform complies with all the rules, the woman in the formal suit replied. Technically, we don't publish news, we don't do journalism, and we don't fall under the corresponding restrictions. It's just an advanced corporate communication system. At that moment, Musk's assistant coughed delicately, attracting attention. Elon, I have a response from Alicia Garcia. Musk took the handed tablet and read the short letter. His lips stretched into a slight smile. She agrees, but on her own terms. She wants to come as a journalist, not as a private individual. And you'll agree? Justin asked in surprise. Sure, Musk shrugged. I've never been against honest journalism. I'm against a system that distorts facts for clicks and drama. He started to type a reply, but suddenly stopped and looked at his watch. We have 2 hours left before launch. Let's focus on this. I'll answer Garcia later. The tech-forward editorial team was in a panic. The announcement of Musk's platform had set off a chain reaction across all major media outlets. Editors were frantically calling each other, trying to strategize how to cover an event that could potentially undermine the very foundation of their business model. Musk is hitting us with our own weapon, Greg said at an emergency meeting. He's creating an information platform where companies will control the narrative, bypassing us entirely. How are we going to compete? Asked one of the tech editors. If companies start leaking exclusives directly through this platform, we'll be out of business. Let's not exaggerate, Greg tried to reassure his colleagues. They can't completely replace independent media. People will still need analysis, context, and a critical eye. Is Alicia there? Someone asked. Her voice would be important to our coverage. Greg hesitated. Alicia is working on a special project. He did not elaborate on whether she accepted Musk's invitation out of fear of panic and accusations of betrayal. We need to be ready for this platform to launch, he said firmly. Full coverage, in-depth analysis, a deep dive into what this means for the industry. If we can't prevent this revolution, we need to lead the conversation about it. As direct democracy's launch approached, tensions in the tech community grew. The hashtags Launch Direct Democracy and Musk Against Media battled for the top spot on Twitter X trends. Stocks of media companies focused on the tech sector began to decline, while Tesla and other potential participants in the platform rose. Alicia, watching all this from her temporary refuge, felt a strange mixture of professional anxiety and journalistic excitement. If direct democracy really was a game changer, she would be at the forefront of reporting on the transformation. Her thoughts were interrupted by a call from an unknown number. Alicia Garcia, she answered carefully. Miss Garcia, this is Sam Harris from SpaceX. A male voice introduced itself. Elon has received your email and agrees to your terms. He suggests meeting tomorrow at 10 a.m. at the main SpaceX facility. I will, Alicia answered briefly. And, Sam added, he's inviting you to attend the launch of Direct Democracy today. Not as a participant, but as an observer. He thinks you'll be interested in seeing how it works from the inside. Alicia thought for a moment. This was a chance to witness the birth of a potentially revolutionary platform firsthand. Where and when? SpaceX Engineering Center. In an hour. A car is already on its way to pick you up. At the appointed time, Alicia arrived at the SpaceX Engineering Center. To her surprise, she was led not to an office space, but to a spacious studio created specifically for the launch of Direct Democracy. Modern equipment for live broadcasting, several filming areas, a team of technical specialists, everything spoke of the seriousness of Musk's approach to this project. Welcome, Ms. Garcia. Musk approached her, holding out his hand. Thank you for accepting the invitation. Alicia shook his hand, noting that his handshake was firm but not aggressive. I'm here as a journalist, she reminded, not as an ally or an enemy. That's exactly what I expected. Musk nodded. Let me show you how our platform works. He led her to the central console, where the Direct Democracy interface was displayed on huge monitors. Simple, intuitive design, sections for different companies, the ability to ask questions, vote on the most interesting topics, watch live broadcasts from labs and production facilities. The idea is simple, Musk explained. We remove the information barriers between companies and the public. If people are interested in how Tesla is handling safety issues, they can ask the question directly and get an answer from engineers, rather than from a journalist who may not have a technical background. And you don't see a conflict of interest here? Alicia asked. Companies are not interested in disclosing unsightly aspects of their activities. That's right, Musk agreed. That's why we're not trying to replace independent journalism. We're creating an additional channel of information, transparent, direct, without intermediaries. Econ. What prevents companies from ignoring difficult issues and focusing only on the positive aspects? The platform's algorithm, Musk pointed to one of the monitors. Questions are ranked by popularity. If a company ignores popular questions, it's obvious to everyone. Imagine what happens when a CEO refuses to answer a question that millions of people voted for. Alicia made some notes in her notebook. And you start with the technology sector? Yes, with what we know best, Musk nodded. But in the long term, the platform is open to companies from any industry, from pharmaceuticals to finance. Their conversation was interrupted by Justin. Elon, 5 minutes until launch. Musk nodded and turned to Alicia. You can watch from here. It will be interesting to know your professional assessment afterwards. Direct Democracy launched with tremendous success. In the first minutes, the platform attracted more than 1 million unique users. People from all over the world asked questions, voted, watched live broadcasts from various departments of tech companies. Musk spent the first session demonstrating the Terra battery, answering technical questions, and showing prototypes of future products. Then other companies took up the baton, each with its own unique approach, but all within the same concept of direct dialogue with the audience. Alicia watched the proceedings closely, analyzing the new format of information interaction. As a professional journalist, she noticed both the strengths and weaknesses of the platform. Yes, there were no aggressive questions or tough confrontations, but there was direct access to information, the opportunity to see real people behind corporate brands, a chance to look where cameras usually don't go. 2 hours after the platform's launch, when the first wave of euphoria began to subside, Musk approached Alicia again. What are your impressions? He asked with genuine interest. Alicia paused, weighing her words. It's innovative, she said finally, and it has the potential to change the information landscape. But I also see problems. The lack of a critical perspective, the risk of information bubbles, the possibility of manipulation through selective disclosure of information. Fair points, Musk agreed. But don't traditional media have the same problems? Don't the New York Times and Fox News create their own information bubbles? Don't editors manipulate through selective reporting? The difference is that journalism, for all its shortcomings, was originally created as an independent institution, Alicia countered. And corporate communications always aim to advance the interests of the company. Musk smiled. And that is why we need both approaches. Direct corporate communications and independent journalism. Transparency and critical analysis. Not confrontation, but balance. He paused, looking at Alicia carefully. That's why I invited you. Not to convert you, but to start a dialogue. A real, honest dialogue between technology and journalism. A few hours later, when Alicia returned to her temporary room, her head was full of impressions and thoughts. She opened her laptop and began to write. Not an article, not a report, but her thoughts on what she had seen. Today I witnessed an event that could change the way tech companies interact with the public, she began. Elon Musk's direct democracy platform is an attempt to remove the middleman between the creators of technology and its users. It's a challenge to traditional journalism, but also an opportunity for it to evolve. She continued to write, examining the strengths and weaknesses of the new approach, analyzing the implications for the media industry, for tech companies, for society at large. Her writing was neither an apology for Musk nor a scathing critique. It was a measured professional analysis. After finishing the text, she opened Twitter, watched X, and saw that Musk's platform continued to dominate the information space. Direct democracy became the most discussed hashtag in the world, accompanied by heated debates about the future of information, journalism, and corporate communications. Alicia's phone rang. It was Greg. Where have you been? His voice was tense. We haven't been able to reach you for hours. I watched the launch of Direct Democracy, Alicia answered honestly. From the inside. There was a long pause. You were there? With Musk? Greg asked incredulously. Yes, and tomorrow I'm going on a tour of SpaceX and Tesla. As a journalist with a notepad and questions. You? Greg seemed at a loss for words. Do you realize what this looks like? As a journalist doing her job, Alicia answered firmly. As a person who goes to the source for information. People will say that you defected, that Musk bought you. Let them talk, Alicia shrugged, though Greg couldn't see it. My work will prove otherwise. After the call, she opened a word processor and began a new document. The Future of Information. Dialogue, Not Confrontation, she titled it. It wasn't just an article, but a potential book, an exploration of the changing information landscape. At that moment, her phone vibrated with a notification. Musk's new post had captured the attention of millions. Today, we took the first step toward direct democracy in the information space. Tomorrow, I invite everyone to join an open discussion about the future of communications. Guest experts include journalists, technologists, philosophers, including Alicia Garcia from Tech Forward, whose critical perspective is a valuable addition to the conversation. The live broadcast begins at 10 PST. Alicia froze. Musk had publicly invited her to join the discussion, acknowledging the value of her critical perspective. This was not a capitulation on her part or a victory on his. This was a fundamentally new format of interaction. Not a confrontation, but a complex, multifaceted dialogue. The notifications on her phone began to multiply at a furious rate. Colleagues, readers, friends, strangers. Everyone was reacting to Musk's invitation. Some were supportive, others accused him of betrayal, others asked questions. But Alicia was no longer fixated on the reaction. She was already thinking about tomorrow's discussion, the questions she would ask, the topics she would raise. This was her chance not just to cover the event, but to shape it, to influence the direction of the discussion, to contribute to defining new rules of the game. She returned to her text and added another line. In a world divided by information bubbles and ideological trenches, the real revolution may not be a new technology, but a new approach to dialogue. Honest, open, not ignoring the complexities and contradictions of the real world. Tomorrow would be the beginning of a new chapter. Not just for her and Musk, but for the entire information landscape. And the thought filled her with both anxiety and excitement, fear and hope, doubt and determination. In essence, this is exactly how a real journalist should feel, standing on the threshold of the unknown.